As Jasmine mentioned, my name is Shamik Chandrachood. I am a second year Grizzly Fellow, and I've been serving the last 11 months with the Resource Conservation District of Tehama County. Yeah, woohoo. And I've kind of taken, paraphrased, and adapted our mission statement to create this title, Preserving, Conserving, and Enjoying Tehama County, a year in review. So let's jump right into it with a little roadmap. Stuff that we're going to be discussing here is we'll go very briefly about my personal background, how I got here. We're going to move into talking about some of the context surrounding Tehama County. We'll move into talking about our district themselves and what we do. We'll move swiftly into my capacity building goals, which has informed the projects that I've worked on thus far. And then I wanted to squeeze a couple more projects in there, but I was just kind of running short on time. So I'll just mention super briefly a couple of side projects that I thought were super noteworthy. And then we'll round off the whole presentation with talking about the successes and struggles of this whole year. So let's start with how did I get here? I was born and raised in Lexington, Kentucky. And of course, that means I'm more familiar with the ecology back east, but I do have a lot of family in California, so I've been able to visit quite a lot throughout my childhood. And once I was actually with my family visiting Lassen. So the kind of seed of what's going on in California, what's their ecology like, was already planted from an early age. In 2023, I graduated with a BA in environmental studies from Center College. And interestingly, I was originally on the pre-med track, but kind of decided that career path wasn't really for me. I took one epidemiology class with my favorite professor, Dr. Fai, where we were studying diseases around the globe. And he started to frame it more in sort of like how can we look at this as an environmental issue rather than strictly biological? Like, what are the kind of environmental factors that create these diseases and make them so prolific in these regions? That got me started to think about what are the kind of human interactions we have with our environment? What are the consequences of that for both us and the environment? And kind of the rest is history. I was hooked on conservation since then. I think it was partly a combination of what Dr. Fai taught me and what I learned in school, but also just, as a child running around, going to forests. This image in the background over here is actually the forest that was behind my house in Kentucky. And I have a lot of fond memories of running around there, making new trails, making mud pies with friends. But I talk a little bit more about that in our GrizzlyCorps blog post. So I'm going to shamelessly plug that in here. If you want to read more about that, go to the GrizzlyCorps website, go to blog and look at my post. All of the posts are great, but I'm highlighting mine as well. But after that, I knew I wanted to work in conservation, just didn't really know what that meant or where to go. So I up and moved my life to California to join GrizzlyCorps. GrizzlyCorps seemed like a good solution because it was kind of a coalescence of what I was looking for. It gave me an opportunity to dip my toe in different areas of conservation. As Jasmine also mentioned, last year I worked doing regenerative agriculture for the Allensworth Progressive Association down in Tulare County. And I just enjoyed my time so much in California learning about everything here that I loved it so much. I just wanted to stay a second year, but with a different site. So I moved to Tehama County. Now, let's go over a little bit of the context of Tehama County. So the population is about 66,000, largely rural, and we're sat right at the top edge of California's Central Valley. Thank you, Todd, for that map. Some of the geography stuff is to the east, we have the Sierra Nevada regions, as many of you know, the Sierra Nevada range. And if we're moving from east to west, we move into rolling foothills, rangeland territories, flat top buttes, and then we sweep into the fertile Sacramento River Valley, which, as many of you know, is a lot of ag stuff is happening in the Central Valley. So that all kind of creates this really unique environmental condition in Tehama County because we have a large mountain range with forests and communities on the eastern side, move into the valleys where we have more ag lands, and then more forest in the North Mendocino forest on the west side. So there's a lot of unique environmental conditions, a lot of watershed activity, which also means a lot of critical tributaries to the Sacramento River. And that also means a lot of outdoor recreation activity. So there's a lot of fishing and stuff going on up here in the North State. So a lot of cool environmental conditions. Talking a little bit more about the context of Tehama County in the context of the work we do, quite a lot of the county is in a high fire severity zone. Some of California's largest wildfires, including the Dixie, August Complex, I think that's this park, have occurred within the last, it says decade. I think this is more like 6 or 7 years. And of course, these fires have had impacts to forests and communities on both sides of the county. These maps here are under the text is provided by our GIS analyst here in-house, Todd Bullock. He's also credited with the photo up there. And if you look at the map on the left-hand side, that shows the recent wildfire history map. So you can see quite a lot of it is concentrated in those forested areas on the east and west side of Tehama County. And then if we move over and look at the fire severity zone map on the right-hand side, we can see so much of the county is in that really high severity zone. And I don't want to get too much into this, but if you'll notice, there's quite a lot of red in that eastern kind of top corner where the park fire outline was. I don't want to get too much into that, but if you're interested to know what's going on with that, why weren't we able to kind of identify some of that stuff more, you can contact Todd Bullock, our GIS analyst at the Resource Conservation District of Tehama County. This is just feeling like a commercial at this point. Shout outs all around. So now that we have a little bit of context of Tehama County, we'll start to talk about RCDs. Now, I know my audience probably knows generally what RCDs do, but just for the handful of people who may not, I wanted to go through it super briefly. RCDs are special districts of the state of California designed to be locally governed, and we implement projects on both private and public lands, and we also educate community members about resource conservation. Projects can include, but are not limited to, watershed and agricultural lands management, wildlife habitat enhancement, recreational land restoration, forest stewardship, fuels reduction, conservation education, community, I mean, the list just goes on. RCDs do quite a lot of conservation work within their boundaries. So where does the RCD of Tehama County fit into all of this? Our mission statement is to work with the community to manage, conserve, improve, and enjoy the natural resources of Tehama County. The origins of RCDs in general kind of came about from the Dust Bowl era of the 1930s, where Congress formed what is now the NRCS, as well as their local counterparts within the counties, which are now RCDs. And in 1987, the RCD of Tehama County was formed to conserve the natural resources within its borders. So how do we do that? We have these kind of 5 pillars of conservation here that I pulled from our website. And a lot of our projects are kind of organized in these pillars, or buckets, sometimes as we like to call them. They are as follows: forest health and fuels management, watershed management, agriculture, habitat restoration, and of course, community outreach and engagement. And as I talk about some of the projects I was involved in, I hope you'll notice that a lot of those projects fill a lot of those different buckets, right? Some projects will do a little bit of forest and fire management, but then we'll also have a community element to it. So just recognize that a lot of these projects fill a lot of these different pillars and buckets. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start talking about the capacity building goals that I was coming in with. There are 4 on here because some of them kind of fell a little to the wayside, but we'll get a little bit more into that. The first capacity building goal I had was to continue to develop the district's novel drone program. We already had a foundation laid. And by the way, there is no drone emoji. We searched on that. We searched on that. I knew someone was going to say it. So continuing to develop the drone program was a big priority. Secondly, I wanted to help establish a countywide prescribed burn association to continue to bring good fire back onto the landscape. I also wanted to just aid in the district's efforts to bolster broad community engagement, some great work that they're already doing, but who doesn't always like another set of hands? And then I'll touch a little bit on a home hardening and defensible space program, which is quite new, but something that I feel is pretty relevant. And I already see Stephanie smiling in the background to talk about. So we'll move on to the very first capacity building goal, which was the drone program. Now, in conservation, drones are just now kind of starting to become a little bit more common and valuable in conservation efforts because of how efficiently we can survey and monitor with such minimal disturbance, as well as our ability to do data collection for planning projects, reporting on projects. And frankly, drones can just go where boots on the ground can't go, and they can also cover a much wider swath of the landscape. This background picture here is actually of Red Bluff. So you can see how much of the landscape we're actually able to capture. So what exactly did I do in the drone program? I assisted with the development of some of the policies with the district concerning the drone program. I also helped to create some of the pre and post-flight safety checklists that we have. I helped to create reporting documents like the one we see on the right over here. And just to talk a little bit about that to kind of exemplify how drones can be used in conservation space. This is such an easy way for us to be able to report on to a funder how work is progressing. It's very easy for them to just look at. I believe this was a roadside clearance for ingress and egress, probably a CAL FIRE project. And it's so easy for us to just show a funder, hey, look at this. This is taken before, this is taken after, and you can see the difference in amount of area that's not covered by vegetation anymore. So now we can pretty easily assume that engines will be able to pass through to and from if catastrophic wildfire does happen there. And then finally, I served as a visual observer for flights with plans to get my Part 107 certification soon, so I can also be a pilot. So that's a little bit about the drone program. We'll talk a little bit about the Tehama County PBA as well. Now, while the district, among many other agencies around the county, have been performing fuels reduction projects, the need for a more community-based organization to learn about and apply beneficial fire is definitely needed, especially in the parts where communities are kind of a little more separated from the agencies and the district as well that isn't able to serve them. So being able to reach out to community members in those more remote areas, teach them about prescribed fire, have them apply it on their landscapes, and then do a kind of like volunteer resource share with them so we can continue to keep the vegetation managed in larger areas of the county. So I was able to aid in the development and research of grant materials. And I also aided in the creation of informational materials, logos, that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, federal funding freezes have kind of put this project on the back burner. We are looking at pursuing other funding streams to keep up this work and continue to build on the foundation that we've laid. But for now, we did kind of have to pivot, and some of my priority projects also pivoted because of that. So we'll move on into talking about community engagement and outreach, which was one of my favorite buckets to fill. The work that we did for community engagement and outreach heavily featured our partnership with the Nature Conservancy and the use of their Dye Creek Preserve. At Dye Creek, we were able to take 2 local elementary schools on school field days where we taught them about pretty, basic but still engaging environmental principles like geology and botany. We were able to show them, just a beautiful preserve that was right in their backyard. And then, of course, kind of try to embed some inherent respect of the environment from an early age, which I think is a very important thing. This was a super fun time. We also got to host some public hikes for community members, both in the fall and spring, which I was able to be a part of. And we just recently, a couple weeks ago, finished a new summer enrichment series with 2nd through 7th graders, where we were able to do a lot of activities like watershed management or watershed exploration, teaching them about that stuff, teaching them about invertebrates that live in Dye Creek as well. It's a really good time. But shameless plug number 2, if you want to read more about my work with Dye Creek and the community engagement stuff that we did, read it on the GrizzlyCorps blog. Like I said, a lot of the posts are really great. Mine's also really great. Please read it. Okay, and then the final kind of area project that will discuss a little bit is the home hardening and defensible space work that we've done. This is still kind of novel. We just now got grant funding, but to talk a little bit about the broad strokes of home hardening and defensible space, when we're talking about wildfire preparedness, defensible space essentially means looking at protecting the area around the home itself. So making sure vegetation is trimmed back so that in case catastrophic wildfire rolls through, there is far less of a risk that the area around your home is going to light on fire. If we're talking about home hardening, we're talking about the structure in and of itself. So if D-space is concerning what's around the structure, home hardening concerns the structure of itself, making sure that that is also fire resilient. So I'm excited to say that we're starting a novel home hardening program to integrate into our existing defensible space program, Tinder Smart Tehama. And I think many of us in the room right here in this conference room can kind of agree. I feel like we've recognized that defensible space work is only one side of the wildfire preparedness coin. So I'm super excited to get a jump start on that. Good on time. And this novel program is funded through a new county coordinator grant. So a lot of home assessments, a lot of home hardening recommendations for landowners to come soon. Super excited about that. And then just to gloss over some of the side projects I've been able to be a part of, I served as a technical project advisor for a senior capstone project at CSU Chico for their College of Engineering. These students were developing a method of aerially igniting prescribed fire through a drone, so falls right into the work that I'm going to continue to be doing. This upcoming semester, they're going to create a prototype of that, so that's going to be super cool to have in hand. I've also been able to help with the Regional Forestry and Fire Capacity Program, which is this kind of coalition among 4 RCDs, ourselves, Western Shasta, Shasta Valley, and Glenn County, where we're creating a regional priority plan to help us better identify, plan, and estimate how much resources we have to allocate to these different priority projects within the entire landscape. And because we're being able to work with these different RCDs, we're able to look at the entire North Sac Valley region as a whole, which is super exciting. I have only actually done 2 field days with the Mobile Irrigation Lab, and Kevin's not here, but I had so much fun that I thought I'd include it in the side projects area anyway. Some other field work that I was able to be a part of, I helped do defensible space work with our field crew, did some prescribed burning with our forestry department, did some RDM monitoring, flagging, just field work that gets you outside and out, away from the office and computer is always really nice. And then something that is going to be pretty influential in my role that I'm stepping into with the district is a lot of just tech help around the office. And then finally, something that I've been able to do that's really new to me is content creation. I've really never done stuff like work in Premiere, work in Photoshop, do Canva stuff. So being able to learn about that through these side projects has been really, really valuable. So now let's just round off this presentation by talking about successes and struggles. So let's start with struggles. Plans change and flexibility is required. I'm sure great example is fire practitioners. I'm sure prescribed fire practitioners in the room and the virtual audience know, you can have a burn scheduled 2 weeks later, and then 3 days ahead of the burn, some environmental conditions change and they're no longer viable to actually do your burn. So flexibility is required, and that's just a struggle that I've had to grapple with and accept because I'm a bit type A and I like things to be very neatly organized. But sometimes it just doesn't work out like that. Another thing that I've really recognized that is so, so important is clear and consistent communication. That is easier said than done, but I feel like we at the district have been able to do a really good job on kind of streamlining some of this and having more effective communication and making sure everybody knows what's going on and everybody's on the same page. And then the final struggle that I listed is federal funding freezes. Let's just not talk about it. Okay, so now to talk about some happy things, some successes. Yay, home pardoning program is funded. I was able to kind of just hop on relationships that the district had already established with the Nature Conservancy, neighboring RCDs, and other organizations around us. And then, of course, new professional skills like creating budgets, fulfilling purchase orders, all of those business savvy things that I did not know about and I'm constantly learning. Of course, content creation. And in actuality, it's kind of difficult to outline all the professional skills that I learned because I feel like I'm learning every day. Today, I just learned something new about technology stuff. So, every day is a learning experience. Yeah, that kind of rounds out what I wanted to talk about with you guys. And finally, I just wanted to show a little bit of gratitude to my family. My mom and dad are that picture over there. My extended family is the bottom right picture. My sister, brother-in-law, and niece are top right, and my two family dogs. Also wanted to show appreciation to the RCD team. This was from our ribbon cutting for this beautiful new office that we have. So super thankful for you guys. Also wanted to shout out GrizzlyCorps, my co-fellows, as well as the GrizzlyCorps admin who are not pictured in this, but they do get credits for the photo. Thank you guys so much. Everyone in the fellowship knows just everything that you guys have had to hurdle throughout this year. So really, thank you so much for everything. And then finally, all of the friends who have helped support me and keep me sane and just be good friends to me. So thank you to everybody.